The mug slipped. Hot liquid splashed across my lap, soaking the linen dress I'd ironed just that morning. I didn't flinch. I didn't gasp. I just watched it spread, dark, slow, deliberate. Across the table, Glenn was still smiling, holding his wine glass midair, oblivious to the fracture he'd just cracked open. "I'm just glad the $1,500 I send you monthly helps you live comfortably," he had said, light-hearted, proud like a man, tossing a gift into a room of admirers. The room froze. Forks paused midair. A few chairs creaked. I didn't look at Glenn. I looked at my son. Marshall's jaw twitched. His smile faltered, recovered, then disappeared altogether. Beside him, Ava, the perfect hostess, gripped her glass a little too tight. Her eyes darted toward me, then away. I caught her whisper it under her breath. "We thought she knew." I kept my eyes on the stain blooming on my lap, brown against pale blue, coffee and silence, two things that always seemed to follow me in this house. No one moved. My son shifted in his chair, cleared his throat, then raised his glass. To family, he said, voice a shade too forced, and to Glenn for his generosity. A few claps, a few awkward smiles. No one looked at me. No one offered a napkin. I picked mine up already soaked through and dabbed at the spill. The fabric squished softly under my fingers, still warm. Ava turned back to her phone. Marshall leaned in to speak with someone else, quick to redirect the moment. Glenn didn't notice a thing. That's always been his way, give, assume, move on. I didn't speak. I didn't ask. I already knew the answer wouldn't be for me. Later in the kitchen, I stood by the sink with the empty mug in my hand. It was chipped near the handle, small crack, barely noticeable unless you held it just right. The kind of damage that doesn't hurt, just lingers. They laughed in the other room. Ava's voice rose above the rest. Something about the roast being too dry. Something about Glenn needing to switch to decaf. Everyone laughed again. I didn't. I looked out the window. The yard lights had come on. Cold white glow over trimmed hedges. A space that used to feel like mine. I rinsed the mug. The water ran brown, then clear. I didn't dry it. Just left it upside down on the rack, watching the last drops fall one by one. Back at the table, Ava had started slicing the cake. She called out, "Mom, want a piece?" I returned to my seat. My lap still damp. The room still pretending. I wiped the table slowly, tracing the rim of my plate, careful not to miss a single crumb. The napkin in my hand was soaked, but I didn't ask for another. I just folded it once more, pressed it flat, and set it down. They had no idea what they'd just confirmed. Or maybe they did. Either way, I stayed quiet. For now. I stopped mid-step. The hallway was dim, but their voices carried clear, muffled, only by the crack in the doorframe and my own breath. I didn't lean in. I didn't have to. "She can't even manage her own money," Ava said, laughing light but sharp. "Your uncle sends it. Who else would help a washed-up woman like her?" Silence. Marshall didn't answer. The silence stung more than the words, because silence in that moment was agreement. I stood still, one hand still resting on the wall for balance. My feet were cold. The floor had always been cold in this house, even when the thermostat said otherwise. "She should be grateful," Ava added, "that we've kept her this long." More laughter, ice in glasses, a clink of a fork on ceramic. I turned away, stepped back, slowly, closed my door behind me. No slam, no sound, just wood sliding into the frame, quiet as breath. I walked to the chair in the corner, the one with the fraying arm, took off my cardigan, folded it twice, and laid it across the back. Then I sat down. The television was still on, silent. A frozen image of a man pointing at something off-screen. I stared through it. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even blink for a while. I just sat there feeling the weight settle in my chest. Not heavy, just hollow. Like something had already been removed. The house creaked as it always did. The walls thinned after dark. You could hear too much. I leaned forward, reached for the bottom drawer of the side table, pulled it open. Inside, beneath an old knitting project I hadn't touched in months, was an envelope. Yellowed slightly at the edges. Marked in my handwriting, Deed Copy A. I held it without opening it. The paper was soft from time folded enough to remember its shape. They'd never asked me where the sale papers went. They assumed I'd thrown it all away with the furniture, that I'd forgotten what was mine. I placed the envelope on the table, right next to the remote. Then I lay back on the bed without turning down the sheets. The ceiling fan hummed above, slow steady. The light spun shadows across the wall, round and round. I watched until the blades blurred, until even the fan gave up and stopped. I typed in the password. Again, slower, careful, incorrect credentials. Please try again. I tried a second time, then a third, locked. I stared at the screen, the same account I'd checked every month for years, just to see if the balance still held. Even if I never touched it, it was mine. Something I'd built with Alan back when tools and invoices filled our days instead of whispers and pity. Need help. Ava's voice slid in from the doorway, too sweet. I can't access my account, I said, still looking at the screen. Oh, she smiled. Marshall said we'd simplify things. You know Streamline. Joint access is easier for everyone. Less confusion. I didn't respond. She tapped the side of the doorframe twice with her nails. Don't worry, Mom. You're taken care of. We've got it all covered. Then she left. Just like that. I sat still until the screen went black. Later that afternoon, I took the bus to the market. Marshall said he'd moved funds to my grocery card, but at checkout, the machine beeped loud and long. Declined. The teenage cashier tried again. Still declined. It happens, she said, shrugging. I paid with cash. I had $47 in my coat pocket. Not anymore. Back home, I reached for the gate to the backyard. Twisted the key. It didn't turn. I tried again. The new lock stared back at me. Bright brass. Untouched. Inside, I opened the kitchen drawer, pulled out a pen and a small notepad, wrote down everything I'd meant to buy: eggs, rice, napkins, coffee. The pen shook in my hand. Not from rage, just from truth. I crossed off coffee last. They didn't even tell me they were changing things. Not once. Later, taking out the trash, I saw a wad of papers near the top of the bin. Not crumpled, just tossed. I pulled one out. A hotel receipt. Room service spa charges. 2 nights. The name at the bottom, Marshall Langford. Right beneath it, secondary account holder, Maris Langford. I held the paper tight, felt it bite against my fingers. The trash bag leaned heavy in my other hand, filled with what they thought I wouldn't check. I folded the receipt. Once, again, then once more. It fit perfectly into the side pocket of my wallet. Glasses clinked. Marshall stood, lifted his wine, cleared his throat like it was a grand gesture. We just want to say he began how lucky we are to still have Mom with us. She's doing great thanks to family support, of course. Polite laughter, applause. Someone even gave a soft cheer. Ava smiled wide, leaned over, and gave me a wink. Subtle. Sharp. I sat still. Lifted my glass but didn't drink. My fingers tightened around the stem. Knuckles white. The wine stayed untouched. That's sweet of him, someone murmured from the far end. A neighbor, maybe. I didn't look. Plates passed, voices rose, people relaxed. They always did when the story made sense. Helpless old woman, generous son, supportive daughter-in-law, neat and simple. I kept my smile frozen. A man I barely knew leaned closer, one of Marshall's co-workers, I thought. He lowered his voice. He's lucky Glenn sends you that rent money, huh? Most families don't do that for their moms. I nodded, but my jaw locked tight. They all believed it. Every one of them. Believed I was being cared for, rescued carried like a tired old thing from one month to the next. No one saw what I'd built, what I'd sacrificed, what they'd taken. Dessert came, cake with too much frosting. Ava cut a slice for me, set it in front of me like a favor. Don't say I never treat you. She laughed. I looked down at the plate, didn't touch it. The drive home was quiet. Marshall talked with the windows down, music low. Something about refinancing and expanding the side of the yard eventually. I didn't respond. The house came into view, porch light on, front gate unlocked, every bulb inside glowing bright, like someone was waiting, like I was the guest returning to someone else's home. I stepped out before he finished parking, walked straight to the door. Inside, I passed the living room, where the framed photos hung. My face smaller now, always at the edge. Never center. I walked to my room, closed the door without a sound, then opened the closet. There, still tucked behind an old winter coat, was the file box I hadn't touched in years. Labeled in Alan's handwriting, taxes, titles, deeds. I pulled it out and set it on the bed. The phone buzzed once. I was folding towels, nothing heavy, just enough to keep my hands busy. The screen lit up across the table. Glenn's still okay with the monthly deposit. You haven't said thank you in a while? I stared at the words. 12 words? 60 deposits. 5 years. Not once had I said thank you. Not because I'd forgotten, because I hadn't known. Because I never saw a single dollar. I sat down. Slowly. The phone still in my hand. My chest didn't rise. Didn't fall. It just held. I thought about all the times Marshall smiled across the kitchen table. Said, "We'll take care of the groceries, don't worry." Or Ava sliding a cheap blouse across my bed and calling it a treat since money's tight this month. They hadn't been taking care of me. They'd been collecting. I set the phone face down. My fingers wrapped around the edge of the table, tight, tighter, until I felt the ache spread up into my wrist. Then I stood, walked to the filing cabinet I hadn't opened since Alan passed. The bottom drawer stuck. I pulled harder. Dust lifted. The old kind that doesn't float, it settles. I rifled past papers. W-2s, tax forms, birth certificates, letters in Alan's old block handwriting. Then I found it. A red folder slightly warped. Original documents, shop sale. I opened it. Inside were copies of the property transfer dated 6 months after Alan died. Marshall's name not on a single line. Then taped to the back, clean precise, was the closure document for our old joint account. I read it 3 times. The signature at the bottom wasn't mine, not in any way that mattered. They didn't just use me. They erased me. I pressed my hand flat on the table. The ache in my knuckles gone now. I reached for the phone again, scrolled past numbers I hadn't dialed in years, stopped at one. Elsie R. Winters Notary, 2016. Alan's friend. My old witness. I tapped call. 3 rings. Then a voice I hadn't heard in nearly a decade. "It's Maris," I said. "I need your help." I dropped the bottle on the floor. It clattered across the tile pills, skittering like dry seeds. I didn't bend down, just stared at them, then turned away. Ava called from the kitchen. "You okay? I forgot my meds again?" I answered. Pause. "Then you really need to keep track." "Mom." "I'll try," I said. They'd been watching me less. Since Glenn's text, I'd started letting things slip. Forgot to set the timer. Missed a name. Asked the same question twice. At first, Ava hovered, then sighed. Now she didn't bother. I moved slower in the mornings, sat longer in the afternoons, They mistook my silence for fog. I let them. They began to talk freely again. Around me, not to me. Marshall said he'd take over the banking completely. Ava started paying bills from the dining table papers, spread out tabs, opened passwords tapped in like I didn't exist. She didn't even look up when I walked past. That night, she left the folders open. Quarterly tax estimates, a statement with Glenn's name, a transfer receipt to Langford Consulting LLC. I waited until the hallway stilled. Then I stepped back out barefoot. Quiet. The phone didn't click. The camera didn't flash. One by one, I captured each page. Then opened the message thread. Cooper. I hadn't texted him in years, but I wrote, "You still do tax work for seniors?" He responded in less than a minute. "Always. You need something flagged, I sent the photos." I waited. He didn't reply. I didn't need him to, not yet. Back in my room, I closed the door with care, sat on the bed, and smiled. Not wide, not long, just enough. The next morning, I moved slowly through the kitchen. Ava ignored me. Marshall scrolled his phone by the window. Then he called out, half joking, half serious, "Don't forget the rent's due again. Uncle Glenn won't wait forever." I slid into the booth first. Chose the seat against the wall. Easier to watch the door. The cafe was empty, except for the barista behind the counter, and an older couple whispering in the corner. Just enough noise to stay anonymous. Cooper arrived on time. Gray suit, clean hands, no small talk. He set a folder on the table. Didn't open it yet. "I've been going through the records," he said. "Your brother's deposits. Monthly on time. 5 years worth." I nodded. "Your name's on all of them. But every receipt, every authorization." He tapped the folder once. "Your son signed them. Said it was on your behalf." I didn't blink. Cooper waited. Then asked quietly, "Was it?" I reached into my purse, pulled out the folded affidavit I'd signed the night before, witnessed and notarized by Elsie. I never approved a single transaction. I never saw a cent. I was never told. He read it carefully. His eyes didn't move fast. While he read, I stirred my coffee once. Just once. Set the spoon down. My hand didn't shake. He slid the affidavit back into the folder. Took out another page. "He used your name to open a joint LLC account. He told the bank you were incapacitated but agreed verbally." "He lied," I said. He nodded. I opened my purse again. Reached past the envelope, past the red folder. Pulled out the thumb drive. Labeled Kitchen Recording, March 14th. He said I didn't understand finances. Ava said I'd be grateful to have a roof. They talked like I was furniture. I placed the drive next to his coffee. He didn't touch it. Just looked at it, then at me. "You recorded it." They left the iPad open. Forgot it was live. He nodded slowly. Closed the folder. Stacked everything in front of him. Then finally spoke. "I'll take care of the next step." I passed the fruit bowl without comment. Poured the coffee without spilling. Ava chatted across the table, all bright smiles and hostess energy. Glenn sat near the end, his napkin still perfectly folded on his lap. The neighbors had come for brunch, warm food, casual chatter, nothing too serious. That's how they wanted it to look. Marshall stood, glass in hand, smile rehearsed. "I just want to say," he began, "how grateful we are. Family is everything, especially when they support you. The way Mom has always supported us." And well, he raised his glass higher to Glenn for helping make that possible. A few people clapped. Glenn chuckled softly. "You're too kind." I stood, chairs shifted, forks paused midair. I'd like to add something. I pulled a manila envelope from my bag. Unsealed, neat. Laid the first sheet flat on the table. A bank transfer record. Dated 5 years ago. Glenn's name at the top. My name underneath. Then the next. Another transfer. Then another. And another. A year's worth in one stack. Another year in the next. One by one, I laid them out like place settings. 12, 24? 36? More. Then I looked at Glenn. None of these ever reached me. The table went silent. I didn't blink, didn't raise my voice, didn't flinch when Ava's fork slipped and hit the floor. Marshall's glass was still raised, but his hand was trembling now. I was told you knew, Glenn said. Slowly. I didn't, I said. Then I sat, calm, straight-backed, picked up my coffee, took a sip. Cooper stepped forward from the far end of the room. Quiet, smooth. I can confirm that he said laying down a folder of his own. He said nothing else. He didn't need to. The silence swallowed every whisper in the room. The call came before sunrise. Cooper's voice was steady, efficient. The accounts are frozen. Charges are filed. I said thank you. Hung up. Sat at the edge of the bed for a moment longer than necessary. By noon, the house felt different. Quieter. Like something essential had already left. Ava cornered me in the hallway, her voice low, urgent. We didn't think it'd go this far. I looked at her. Really looked. The careful hair. The practiced concern. The eyes searching my face for weakness. It went exactly as far as it needed to, I said. She opened her mouth again, closed it, stepped back. In the living room, Glenn stood stiff near the window, hands folded like he was waiting to be called into a meeting. When he saw me, he cleared his throat. I should have checked, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm sorry, Maris. People shifted. No one interrupted. I nodded once. Marshall stood near the stairs, arms crossed, jaw locked. He didn't look at me, didn't speak. Silence again. This time it didn't hurt. I went to my room, opened the closet, pulled the small suitcase from the back, set it on the bed. I packed slowly, not much to take. A sweater, a pair of shoes, the photo of Alan by the lake. Each item placed with care. No rush. My breathing stayed even. Halfway through, there was a soft knock. Cooper stepped in, held out a single folder. Forgot to give this to you earlier. Inside was the deed. Clean, updated. One name, mine. One clause added in neat print. Sole ownership confirmed. Immediate effect. I closed the folder, held it against my chest for a moment, then set it carefully into my bag. When the suitcase was zipped, I stood, looked around the room. Nothing left behind that mattered. In the kitchen, I set my key on the counter, right where Ava would see it. Then I walked outside, closed the gate behind me, locked it from the outside. The click echoed sharper than I expected. I didn't turn around. I just walked down the driveway, suitcase rolling softly behind me, already feeling the quiet ahead open its door. I pour the coffee. The stream is thin, controlled. It lands cleanly in the mug without a sound. No splash, no spill. The apartment is small. One bedroom, one window facing east. Morning light rests on the floor like it's been waiting for permission. Nothing here is borrowed. Nothing temporary. The mug is the same one from that day. The chip near the handle still there. I turn it so the crack faces inward. Old habits don't disappear overnight. They soften. I sit. The chair doesn't wobble. The table doesn't creak. There's no television noise, no voices bleeding through walls, no footsteps pacing above my head. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the quiet settling of a new place learning my shape. I lift the mug. My hand is steady. I don't brace for heat. I don't flinch. I drink fully, slow, and unafraid, the warmth spreading the way it's supposed to. No rush, no interruption. On the table beside the mug is a single envelope. Inside is a copy of the final transfer, the last one Glenn sent, returned, untouched. I wrote the note myself. One line, clear. Use it where it's needed. I didn't add my name. I don't need to prove anything anymore. I think of Alan of the shop we built with our hands, the ledger he kept in careful columns, the way he used to say that money only mattered if it didn't own you. I think of how long it took me to understand that. The coffee cools. I don't mind. I breathe in, out. There is no victory rush. No sense of triumph. Just space. Clean and honest. I rinse the mug, set it upside down on the rack, watch the last drop fall and disappear into the sink. Then I open the window. Air moves through the room, lifting the curtain slightly, carrying in the sound of morning distant traffic. A bird somewhere, the ordinary proof that life continues without asking permission. I sit back down. Steam rises. Soft. Clean.